Ed, thanks again for joining us on China Unscripted.
Well, it has been more than 2.5 years. It's good to see you all.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah. It does seem like we were like the last time we saw you in person was in Hong Kong in September 2019.
Right.
Which, because of the pandemic, I feel like was just a couple months ago.
But it was much, much longer, and a lot of things have changed since then.
A lot of things have changed since we last had you on.
Yeah.
I guess a big one is that you are no longer in Hong Kong. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Correct. Yeah. Last time, I remember we did 2 episodes for China Uncensored in my office. And now I left actually last year after Apple Daily was shut down on the 24th of June. And then my English editor got arrested at the airport on June 26th. So within 48 hours, I decided it's about time to leave temporarily. So I left on June 28th.
Were you kind of holding your breath when you were at the airport?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've done anything wrong. I mean, I'm a strong defender, put it this way, as you all know, in the genuine one country, two systems. So when I say genuine, I also always attack the fake one, as you can buy 2 Rolexes with $10 US at in Flushing, New York on Canal Street, right? So this is not the real deal. But I don't know.
Are you saying my Rolex is fake?
I'm saying they have to know what is the genuine one country, two systems versus, the one that they claim they are still having, which is not true.
Do they even bother saying they have one country, two systems anymore? Or have they just completely stopped talking about that?
Some still do, to commemorate some important events, but I don't think a lot of people talk about it anymore. But for Hong Kongers, they want the Deng Xiaoping model, honestly, even though he did something very terrible during Tiananmen. But the hatred is not the same as what we have now. I mean, comparing with Deng. So,
and by the Deng Xiaoping model, you mean letting some cities be special economic zones, or what exactly?
I mean, after the Tiananmen massacre, and it's recorded by the Red Cross that more than 3,000 people were killed, I guess the quickest way is to rebuild confidence from the Western world. It's to develop all these special economic zones. And you mentioned the coastal cities, with Hong Kong and Macau being really special because of the linkage with the British and also with Portugal. But then, it's different now. It's an extreme makeover.
Well, hey, Elon Musk wants Taiwan to be a special economic zone of China.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. He thought they could probably get a better deal than Hong Kong.
Maybe they could have the real one country, two systems. Maybe the CCP will honor that one country, two systems model.
Maybe. Who knows?
You had something, Shelley?
Oh, Ed, I was going to say, so you talked about your editor at the Apple Daily getting arrested. So everything that's happening with Apple Daily probably feels like hits pretty home, close to home for you, huh?
Oh, yeah. I've known Jimmy, Mr. Lai, since the early 90s, so more than 30 years. And then he started first with Nick's magazine, and then 95 he started Apple Daily. And the management and the editorial team, I know them for a long time. And then it's just more than surreal to see all 7 of them, including Mr. Jimmy Lai, being detained. And of course, Mr. Lai is now serving prison sentences, not the national security alleged crime that he had, but on illegal assembly by commemorating the candlelight vigil for Tiananmen, and also some so-called commercial crime. It's like you rent an office, they have this Apple Daily compound, and then they use one office to do accounting, secretarial work, and they say it's not the usage that you report, and then they jail him. The sentence was 5 years and 9 months. It's unheard of. Usually it's just a fine or something. And most people don't care. Usually, if you are having WeWorks, you have multiple businesses, right? When you have a business. So it's it's just they want to detain Mr. Jimmy Lai for indefinitely, the way I look at it. They look at him as more like a public enemy, number one, which is very sad.
Yeah, even the national security advisor for the U.S., Jake Sullivan, recently said what happened to Jimmy Lai was basically like a violation of Hong Kong's basic law. Like it was clearly them trying to find a way to imprison him and keep him in prison. So it's also pretty significant that the U.S. would come out and say something um, that straight up about what's happening in Hong Kong.
It's like they figured out how to use the law as a tool to go after the people that the Communist Party wants to go after. Like it's not like the law rules the land, right? It's just like a weapon in the hands of the CCP now.
Yeah, and I don't think he can come out alive. I mean, this is like 6 years already. Like if he is now 75, so 5 years, 9 months of this commercial, so to speak, wrongdoing that he has, plus the illegal assembly. So he'll be 81. And then the NSL trial only started, they keep postponing, will be next year in September, right? So it could be another 20 years or life sentence, right? So he just doesn't want him to come out alive.
I've even heard some rumors they're talking about putting him on trial in mainland China. I don't know if you've heard any updates on that.
Well, the member of the National People Congress Standing Committee, there is a guy named Tam Yu Chung. Probably you mentioned it in your other episodes too. But I find they like to be very left and very extreme when they say things just to please Beijing. I mean, these are like the Hong Kong puppets. They like to use the most extreme, most scary words. I mean, this is really like ruled by fear, and it's scaring a lot of businesses away from Hong Kong because of their speech. Like they don't go through the thinking process before they say something. So it sounds like more like a cultural revolution of sorts, but this is 2022 version.
Why do you think they're going after Jimmy Lai in particular so hard?
Because first of all, this was the only free pro-democracy newspaper back then, and then it has been in existence for more than 27 years, since 95. And then honestly, the way I look at Jimmy is that with Jimmy, Cardinal Zhang, Martin Lee, and Anson Chen, who won't like to speak up anymore because she already passed 80, so she decided to step up from politics. Now these four, plus some of the so-called loyalists who died, some of them, they really like Hong Kong and they really believed in the two systems model when it was first drafted in 1984. But then, of course, that was when Deng Xiaoping was alive. And then after Tiananmen, people were looking at when Hong Kong become really like a financial center, there could be rule of law, and then there could be using common law as a standard. But now this national security law is superimposed into the Appendix 3 of the Basic Law. So in other words, it is saying that the NSL, the National Security Law, is above all laws. And then Xi Jinping talked about, the judiciary, administrative, and legislative, these three pillars, they should work hand in hand instead of being independent. So we see, like in Hong Kong now, all these NSL handpicked judges. I mean, they don't really have the merit, and then they have to follow the orders from Beijing. And then the worst of all is that for Mr. Lai and also for the 47 who will be going on trial too, there is no jury. So it's just based on 3 NSL handpicked judges, ultimately by Beijing, to decide the fate of where they will be sentenced. And most of these, as we all know, that if they are tried in so-called the Chinese, well, put it this way, the court system with Chinese characteristics, 99.999% of the time they will be indicted for whatever the authority says. So that's the thing that's so horrible.
I am curious about that because we reported recently on the Hong Kong activist who actually had a charge against her dismissed for...
That wasn't a national security law charge, though.
Yeah, but it still was surprising that it was about commemorating the Tiananmen Square massacre, and it seems like this was a ruling that was not 100% in line with what Beijing you would think would want.
Yeah,
That's the lower court, though. That's the lower court. And then the DOJ, Department of Justice, which is like the prosecutor in the U.S., they would say, I don't like the verdict, and then they will go to a higher court. This is the same thing with Jimmy Lai. He was trying to get a King's Counsel, Tim Owen, coming in to be his defense lawyer. But then it has gone through like 4 different levels of the court until it reaches the court of final appeal. And then the verdict was that, yes, Mr. Lai could get Tim Owen to represent him. But then, and then this NPCSC people say, hey, we want an interpretation from Beijing to see whether this is something that could be done. So that's why we had this postponement. It was supposed to be December 1st for the trial to start it. And now it's postponed till September of next year. They want the NPCSC to interpret the basic law and also the NSL under the Appendix 3, which is a very sad story.
I guess I don't really understand what the problem the Hong Kong government had with Jimmy Lai getting a British lawyer to defend him was. Like, what was the Hong Kong government's objection to this? Because, if the NSL court is already 3 handpicked NSL judges, they don't have to convince a jury. Like, pretty much, no matter how good Jimmy Lai's lawyer is, like, they have to, like, the ultimate verdict will be from these 3 people who are probably going to rule against him. Why couldn't he have a British lawyer?
I agree with you, Shelley. I mean, the false pretense would look even better for them, right? If they let Tim Owen, this King's Counsel, to come in. But then, I think right now the pro-Beijing loyalists in Hong Kong, whether it's from the government or from the legislative branches, they don't think clearly. They just think, to act very extreme, they will score brownie points. Like according to their so-called narrow thinking. And then they think that would please Xi Jinping or, broadly speaking, this would please Beijing, but it's not the case.